All right, it's that time of the week, time for my mom's favorite show, and I know you guys like it too. Don't act like you're not impressed. It's the NFC West Huddle. That's where we go around the NFC West in different markets and check in with the local experts in each city and each team in the division. Yes, in Seattle, we've got Aaron Levine, the Aaron Levine. He's the smartest guy in the room at all times. He's a Stanford grad, by the way. In LA, it's Gerard Moncure. This guy wins so much, I beat him in a dream. I woke up and I apologized. I said, my bad. And then in San Francisco, it's my man, Pots and Pans, Keyshawn Ward. He's the guy that invented the term, do you even lift, bro? He even has those T-shirts and stuff. Yeah, that's who he is, right? I'm Richard Sines, the GM, the owner of the Chimichangas, a fantasy football powerhouse. This is the NFC West Huddle, as I mentioned, and hallelujah. Thank you, baby Jesus. We finally have the NFL schedule, right? We knew who they were playing, but now we know when and where they are playing and at what time, right? So is it just me, or is this the first time I've seen these crazy videos introducing the schedule? I got to admit, I was pretty impressed with a couple of them. So let's start out with you, Aaron, over there in Seattle. What do you think about the video that you guys had? Who had the best video in the division?
Well, first off, let me say I'd like a half hour of my life back after watching a number of those videos. I did not appreciate them as much as you did, Richard. It proves one thing. Comedy is hard. Originality is hard. And just because everyone else is doing it in the league doesn't mean that you should be doing it also if you can't do it well. There is one team that consistently has the best video, and this year was no different. It was the Chargers knocking it out of the park with their Minecraft video, and I don't even like Minecraft. But you're asking about the NFC West. I think it's ironic that almost every other team mocked the 49ers for their obsession with nostalgia and their glory years in the 80s and the 90s. And what do the Niners do? They do a mind-numbing video game right out of that era. So typical. The Rams video, marginally funny, but way too long. Richard, the Cardinals music video is pretty cool, and it's catchy. I can actually sing the chorus right now. It goes, what, 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, shut the door, 5, 6, pick up sticks. That's how it goes, right? The Seahawks one, not horrible.
Dak paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
Exactly. I mean, I knew I had heard it somewhere. The Seahawks one, not so bad. The only cool part about it was the mini action figures that all the 12s want to buy now, even though they're not available, from the Bam Bam Cam van and the King Dome bathroom. I think they would make a fortune if those things actually went on sale, but honestly, all of it so unnecessary. You can call me the buzzkill on this topic, guys.
Yeah, so Aaron said, get off my lawn. I didn't know you were the old man of the group. We know you're the smartest one, but you're a little grumpy today. Wow, all right. You must only have 3 assistants instead of 5. But hey, I got to admit, anytime you mention Steve Largent and have a Steve Largent action figure like I used to have, that's pretty cool. So I was impressed. Now, over in L.A., Gerard, I expected you guys to knock it out of the park. It is Hollywood, by the way. I love Brenda's song. That was pretty, she's great, right? But also, I like the way that you guys didn't really pick on the Cardinals, and for good reason. We did hook you guys up in the postseason.
The Cardinals did the Rams a solid, so no, they were not involved in the treachery the Rams put out there with Brenda Song, actress, of course, former child TV star. But, they had Jared Verse dumping on Philadelphia, classic. That's going to bring some more heat into the rivalry, which is turning into a rivalry now after the playoff game. Of course, they were all over the 49ers, mocking them with VHS tapes, bringing back the last time they won Super Bowls, the 80s. I thought that was fantastic. They got after the Saints. I mean, who bothers the Saints? But they got after the Saints about still being mad from the no call in the NFC Championship game that sent the Rams to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And then they also got after the Lions, which I love because this is turning into kind of a friendly but nasty rivalry. But they got after the Lions because they're really good, but they still haven't won any titles. So I thought the jabs the Rams put in this season schedule drop were fantastic. I was entertained. Aaron, I'm sorry you thought it was a little long, but it actually held my attention, and I thought they did a good job with it. I was pretty pleased with it when I watched it.
Yeah, I was impressed too. It was cool to see each team, try and get creative. Some of them were, some of them weren't. And Gerard, you weren't here last week, so you kind of missed the gun show over in San Francisco last week, and that's where we turned to my guy Keyshawn.
You know
he was showing off the
I
python.
actually saw it. I told you, Keyshawn. I did.
I told him I'm coming for him. So I've been working out, and I got proof, of my workouts and the results I have. Here it is. I told you I'm coming for you.
Nice job,
This was
Richard.
at me after my workout today. So you see this chest? You can grow corn on this chest, Keyshawn. I've been working out. I do the triceps, the biceps now. Low carb diet. And I feel like I'm seeing some results. So I noticed you wore an actual large this time. You wore a medium last time, but I used to box. I boxed for 5 years. I boxed oranges my first year, apples the second year. I was in the petite husky division. But anyway, back to your video, Oregon Trail. Tell me about what you thought about your guys' video. I was kind of like, after a while there. I'd rather just watch videos of you working out instead.
Well, I'm actually on the side with Aaron today. I'm going to be honest, you kind of mentioned it earlier. I never knew this whole schedule release thing was a phenomenon. I mean, I know in the era we live in now, everybody wants to go to social media and make things, cool and creative. But I got to be honest, man, it was kind of boring, especially, talking about the Niners. I watched it probably for maybe 20 seconds, and I was like, yeah, this video is actually older than me. And I'm a historian, but that video game did not look fun to play, so I didn't take too much time watching that. Now, the one that stood out the most, I'm going to go down to the South. The Houston Texans. I don't know if y'all saw it. I don't know if you've seen the movie, Scary Movie, back when it came out in 2000, but, man, it was a classic moment. It started off with Bun B. He made a phone call, and he had like an old-school phone, by the way. Credit to them for doing that. Pick up the phone, answer, and he was doing a conversation with a fan, and the next thing you know, they did this. Bear with me, all the viewers out there. They were saying, "What's up?" whenever they answered the phone. That classic Scary Movie moment, man, brought back some real childhood memories. So I got to say, the Houston Texans, they knocked out the ballpark with that video.
And I remember that Super Bowl commercial. That was a pretty good commercial. I gotta admit that was pretty cool. But I think the victory goes to the Cardinals. I mean, the rap video was amazing. The production. Look, I wore these cufflinks, and I don't know if you can tell, they're fire extinguishers because that video was fire. I mean, Mac Wilson was amazing. How many teams can say they got a rapper on their team and they had the great video with the great production value? This guy, Mac Wilson, I'm telling you, he's pretty amazing. He just held a charity basketball game. It's cool because he's giving back to the community. He's rapping. He could hoop. And it wasn't like a softball game or a golf tournament. And you can see guys out there. Marvin Harrison Jr. was dunking. So I think the Cardinals are already 1-0 in the division, just annihilating you guys when it comes to the video to introduce the schedule. So I kind of, like I was telling you, Keyshawn, before we started, I was surprised that they even had these. I don't even remember seeing them last year, but I was pretty impressed, right? All right, so now let's get to the actual schedule, right? We have some primetime games. The Cardinals, of course, always getting the short end of their stick. They only have 2 primetime games. So I was like, what's going on here? I thought maybe when Jacksonville or maybe when they play Tampa, Baker Mayfield against Kyler Murray, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, 2 Oklahoma guys. But no love for the Arizona Cardinals. The only love we got was in the video introducing the schedule from of all teams, the Rams, right? Because we hooked you guys up. But, yeah, so you got Seattle on Thursday Night Football, then the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Kyler Murray doesn't lose in Cowboy Stadium. He's a Texas high school football legend, so that's going to be a lot of fun to see him go back there and see how he plays against the Cowgirls. I mean, the Cowboys. We'll see by then. Probably CeeDee Lamb and the Steelers receiver and Dak Prescott. Pickens. They'll be all fighting.
George Pickens.
We'll see what happens by the time the Cardinals. Yeah, George Pickens. Forget that. I mean, we'll see how long does it take before those guys start to argue? Him and CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. About not getting enough balls, but we'll see. That's a good primetime game, right? So, yeah, the Rams, boy, Gerard, you guys get, 5 primetime games?
4.
What's going on there? I guess it pays to be in L.A.
Well, it pays to be the best team in the division, Richard. Okay?
Ooh, I set that one up for you, didn't I?
Let's not get it twisted, all right? Niners,
Yeah, you keep it real.
Bucks,
You keep it real.
Seahawks, and Falcons. These are all worthy primetime games. I'm actually disappointed, however, I'm going to be greedy, that Philly and Detroit were not primetime games. Who in the country does not want to watch the Rams and Eagles and the Rams and Lions? The last couple Rams and Lions games have been must-see TV. Overtime, the game, and let's go back to the playoff game against the Eagles. I mean, it doesn't get any more exciting than that. How are those two games not primetime games? The Falcons are a very entertaining team. The Rams and Hawks always seem to have some great battles. The Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, that's must-see TV. And then the Rams and Niners, whether they're low-scoring games or high-scoring games, it's a rivalry. So at least one of those should always be televised. But instead of 4, I'm being greedy. They should have 6. That's how I feel about it. I feel like they got duped a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see Atlanta getting some primetime games. I'm like, what's going on over there? What, Seattle, Aaron, how many, you guys got, what, 3 games?
Got
One
4.
of them, of course, against the Arizona Cardinals. What do you think about your primetime matchups?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Seahawks would get 2 or 3, and instead they're actually getting 4. I remember when we were hard-pressed to get just 2, so I think it's great. Although one of those, the Seahawks-Texans Monday Night Football game in Week 7, is the second half of a doubleheader that night that's going to be behind a paywall for most of the country on ESPN+. So I sympathize with the 12s on the East Coast that are going to have to stay up for a 10 o'clock kickoff and have to pay to watch that game. I love the Commanders Sunday night game because that's when we're going to be able to see how good the Seahawks actually are. And, of course, a couple divisional games in prime time. I don't always love the Cardinals one, especially going back to that 6-6 tie back in the day. But I do like the Rams game. It's a short week. The Rams have to go on the road after facing a tough Lions team at home that's not in prime time, to Gerard's dismay. But the Hawks should have a clear advantage in that one based off of the timeline of that week. So I'm happy with the 4 games in prime time for the Seahawks, even though that second half of a doubleheader against Houston on Monday Night Football.
Is it just me, or does Aaron need a hug today? Are you all right, bro? He seems to be. First, the videos are too long. Now we got to stay up late to watch football.
I'm on the West Coast. I'm giving my sympathy to everybody on the East Coast for having to pay for that game, too.
Okay. Just check it. Hey, 49ers, always on prime time. I guess that's what happens when you go to a Super Bowl in recent years. Keisha, what do you think about your guys' primetime matchups? Quite a few for you guys.
Well, if you watched last week's show, I kind of predicted that they're going to go at least 5 games, and what did they do? They gave the Niners 5 primetime games, and this is the best way to start off with, having the Niners go at the Rams, like Gerard just mentioned. That game is always intense. I mean, even last year, I was very disappointed in the Niners because they had a lead, and then, of course, they choked. That's neither there or there. That's a conversation for another day. But I do like the fact that they're going to have the Niners at the Rams on national TV. It's a spectacle because the Niner fan base always take over SoFi Stadium, so that'd be a great watch. Then they're going to play the Falcons. And, Richard, I don't know if you know this, man, but they're going to be a top 10 offense this year. I mean, Michael Penix is going into year 2, and he's going to have a lot of weapons. And having Bijan Robinson, arguably a top 3 running back in the NFL, that's going to be a great game. So I think the Niners, they're going to have some formidable opponents, but here's when things get kind of tricky. I'm, grateful for them being prime time, but I don't know if it's the best watch. Later on in the year, they're going to play the Carolina Panthers. Other than T-Mac fighting with Deommodore Lenoir, I don't know if that's the most sexiest game to watch on TV, as a standalone game, but I'll take it. And then later, I think they play the Colts on Sunday Night Football. And I'm going to be honest, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, I can see 4 turnovers by both quarterbacks in one game. So that's not going to be a great watch, but it'll be, a couple easy wins. Now, here's when things get a little interesting. The Niners are going to be playing the Bears, I believe, in Week 17. I don't know where the Bears be standing at. Will it be competing for a wild card spot? Will the Niners be resting guys? Who knows? But moral of the story, it's going to be a rematch of last year's game. That game was completely unwatchable, though, because the Niners completely dismantled them. But I think having Ben Johnson calling offensive play calls, going against the Niners. We saw what he did against the Niners in Week 15, being the offensive coordinator for the Lions. So it'll be a great watch for that. And Kyle Shanahan, him being a wizard with play calling. So I think the Niners should at least win, or the record should be 4-1 in primetime games this year, or at least 3-2. But I'm grateful for opportunity, but I'm not too happy with the Colts and who was the other team?
Panthers.
The Colts. Panthers, yeah. Not the best watches. We'll take it, but yeah. I'm not surprised they got at least 5 primetime games.
Yeah, and then of course, as I mentioned, the Cardinals getting the short end of the stick. No love for the Cardinals, not only on primetime games, but now our next topic is the schedule, right? A tough stretch for the Cardinals to start the year. Cardinals start the year on the road again. It happens almost every single. Back in the day, before they got State Farm Stadium, I could see when they were playing at Sun Devil Stadium because it was hot over here. So might as well go on the road and wait till it cools down, right? But now I'm like, what's going on? They're at New Orleans, and then 2 of their first 4 games are division games. So that's a tough stretch to start out. So the Cardinals better start, fast like they did last year. I think the bye week comes at a good time this year. They have it in week 8, and that's kind of helpful because they have to get better after the bye week. Last year, they were the top team in the division. They go to the bye week, and then it was bye-bye playoffs, right? They fizzled towards the end when I was already, making postseason plans, and they broke my heart. I don't know why I fell for it. And then again, this year, they're going to have to, I think the toughest stretch is the beginning, but the end also. 3 of the last 4 games are on the road, so you got to stockpile those wins early where you can have some leeway. They got 1 in Cincinnati, and that could be flex. It's one of those Saturday games, and then they end at L.A., a team that we know has given the Rams all kinds of trouble. So I think the schedule makers did not do the Cardinals any favors in not giving them primetime games and giving them a tough matchups to start and then at the end. So again, no love for the Cardinals. But hey, you know what? We're used to it, over here, right? So in San Francisco, I'll go back to you, Keyshawn. You guys got, 2 games on the road to start. Give us your thoughts on what's the toughest stretch for your schedule.
So originally, when I was kind of looking at the schedule, I was going to say week 5 to week 8 because it looks like they'll be playing the Falcons and then they're going to play. Yeah, it's a stretch where they play the Falcons and they go to Tampa for an early start and then they come back and then I think they play 2 teams that have winning records from last year. But I'll be honest, when I saw this stat line, I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. They don't have a bye week until week 14 into the season. So I think the tough stretch starts around like week 8 to week 10. You're going through all these grueling games. The body gets a little battered. And we saw the Niners last year, they were doing a lot of injuries. So the Niners going from week 8 to week 14 is going to be a tough stretch because they don't have a bye week until that late into the season. So let's see what happens for the Niners around that time of year.
All right, Gerard, over in L.A., you guys have a bit of a tough stretch where I think you're at Baltimore and then London. What do you think is the toughest part of your schedule over there in L.A.?
Well, they start the season at home against a playoff team, though. The return of C.J. Stroud, who is from Southern California, and the Texans come to town, and then they've got to go on the road and head to Tennessee. Every road game in the NFL can be difficult, but then they hit a stretch of weeks 3 through 9, which, in my opinion, is the real tough part of the schedule. At Philadelphia, okay, and then they come home, got to travel across the country, get the Colts at home, but then you've got the Niners, okay, at SoFi. So 2 home games, but that Niner game is going to be a tough game in Inglewood. Then they've got to travel back across the country to Baltimore, play the Ravens. We all know what the Ravens are about. And then they go across the pond. You got Jacksonville. Change the time zones, the flights, all that. They'll probably stay on the East Coast, go directly to London from there. But then they come all the way back to L.A. to deal with the Saints, okay? And then they've got to travel up the coast to play the Niners. So if you just look at all that travel, that's a lot of wear and tear. That's a lot of mental displacement for players who are creatures of habit. So we're going to see how they survive weeks 3 through 9. That is going to be a real stretch for these guys to see what their mental fortitude's about, see what kind of rhythm they can get in every week. It's a lot of travel. So we'll see how Sean McVay handles this. He's a master at this stuff, but that's going to be challenging.
All right, over in Seattle, we got my guy, Aaron Levine. Aaron, I'm kind of curious to see how you guys start because you got a lot of major changes, right? A lot of new faces in key places, quarterback, no DK Metcalf. What do you think about the way you guys started or finish, or what do you think is the toughest part of the schedule for the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, first off, I'm glad Gerard's Rams down there are actually having to travel more miles, along with the Chargers, than the Seahawks are this year. I believe the Rams and the Chargers are the top two in the league in terms of number of miles that they're going to have to travel. Fortunately, the Seahawks not having an international game this year. The toughest stretch for the Seahawks, though, I think right after the bye week in Week 8. You have Weeks 9, 10, and 11 at the Commanders on Sunday Night Football. Then you're home for the Cardinals, and then you're at the Rams. And if the Seahawks have a winning record after their first 7 games, which I believe they should, despite all the changes, it's these 3 games that is going to show everyone what kind of team they really are. Are they just an average team this year, or are they legitimate contenders to win this division? I'm also hoping, and I know Keyshawn alluded to it, but how easy that Niners stretch of games are toward the end of this year. I mean, they go Panthers, Browns, bye week, Titans, Colts, Bears. When we come to Santa Clara in Week 18, when the division might be on the line, I'm bringing you guys cupcakes to commemorate that stretch of games that the Niners have in November and December. It is just unbelievable.
Like someone's feeling sorry for the 49ers in the league office, right?
Yeah. They want the Niners to win this year.
You know what happens when you got too many cupcakes, you get a stomach ache. So we'll see. But, you know, the way Keyshawn works out, he probably doesn't even eat cupcakes, you know. So
Oh, my
we'll
gosh.
see. And, you know, the cool thing about, you know, the NFL schedule coming out is when you can see, look at the games, be like, oh, I want to see this game, or I want to, you know, this is going to be a good matchup, and blah, blah, blah. And what I noticed this year is we had leaks, right? We had a couple of leaks coming out this year. You know, some people like the leaks, you know, on Monday, Tuesday, it's like a build-up, a couple teases, you know. First you saw the overseas games, then you thought, okay, this is going to be the first game. And to me, it got me pumped up, right? Because I was like, okay, you know, you got, you know, Super Bowl champ starting on Thursday against the Cowboys, and then, you know, you start finding out, okay, who? I looked and I was like, well, they got all the overseas games except for the Chargers opponent. I know the Cardinals were playing the Chargers, so they're not going to be overseas. So then you start trying to guess, and, you know, to me it makes it fun. It's kind of like a build-up, but I know some people weren't too happy about the leaks, and I kind of sensed or noticed that there were a lot more leaks than normal. Like before it even became official, we already had the Cardinals schedule. So Gerard, what are your thoughts? You know, you're always so connected. You probably have the schedule. You probably helped make the schedule for the NFL. But what are your thoughts on the leagues? Do you like the build-up?
Well, Richard, if I had helped make the schedule, I'd have made sure the Niners, the end of their schedule was a lot tougher than what Aaron was talking about. That's for sure. I like the leaks. Found out the Rams were going across the pond. We weren't sure who the opponent was going to be. That's exciting. That's exciting if you're a fan. It's exciting if you're a media member covering the Rams. You know, I'm not sure if we will travel or who will travel, but that's all exciting. It also leaked, though, that the Rams possibly were going to play a Thanksgiving Day game against the Buccaneers. So when I saw the schedule and I found out that that game is a regular Sunday game, I was disappointed. I was hoping the Rams would get a Turkey Day game in front of the country against Baker Mayfield and company at SoFi. That would be a classic game to have on Thanksgiving. And when I found out it was a Sunday game, I was a little bummed about it. So my take on this, like some leaks, don't like some leaks. Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the leagues? With the mood you're in today, I'm going to guess you're not a fan of it.
How about this? I love it. I love it.
What?
Because there's
Who
a
are
slow,
you and what do you know with Aaron Levine?
There's a slow build up to the day of. And then as a fan, I mean, it might be fun to see everyone find out everything all at once instead of having a slow drip throughout the week. But at this point, there are so many leaks, especially on the day of. Most fan sites have the full schedule a full hour or two before the team releases it officially at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Now, from my perspective, we had a full hour-long special right at 5 o'clock that day it was released. So for planning and production purposes, it is a huge help for us, provided that all that information is fairly correct, because we're ready to go for the most part, even if the team's not feeding us that information beforehand. But yes, in general, I think some leaks throughout the week are a good thing because it just builds the excitement throughout that week.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because you do have to kind of weed through the bad leaks, right? Because you're like, I saw one was like Cowboys and Cardinals on Thanksgiving, or the Lions and the Steelers on Thanksgiving. You're like, I don't know about that one, and then you see like, yeah, I knew that was not true, right? A bunch of BS, right? So, Keyshawn, what are your thoughts on the leaks? I mean, I'm sure you're happy, right? Because the schedule really went in your guys' favor, that's for sure. You must your workout partner must be the guy that makes the schedule. What's going on over there?
Oh my God. I am blessed with the Niners schedule, but no, I'll be honest, I'm sound like an old man, but I don't like the leaks. I'm not a big tease person. I like somebody just giving me the full entree. I don't like giving me appetizers and give me a little snack here. Give me the full plate all at once. Because you just brought up a great point. I was literally on Twitter 3 days ago looking at some sites, and I saw a schedule where the Niners were opening up at the Colts. So the whole time thinking like, okay, how this going to work out? They're going to be at the Colts. Then they said they'll go to the Seahawks. I'm like, damn, they got to start the season, across the country to come back to the Pacific Northwest. But then come to find out, they're not even going to play the Colts till the end of the year. So it's just too many leaks where it's like you don't know what's true or not. Just give me the whole schedule all at once so I know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, so I can plan ahead and I just not get my hopes up for certain matches at certain points of the season.
Yeah, you lost me when you said you don't like appetizers. After that, you sounded like the adults in Charlie Brown. I was like, wah, 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 wah. I'm like, what? Who doesn't like appetizers? How do you not like chips and salsa with the queso and the guac? Well, that gets you going.
No, man.
It's called
give
an
me
appetizer
nachos,
for a
not
reason.
the chips and salsa. I want the full. Oh man, I want the full course meal.
Well, when it comes to dinner plans, you're nacho going to get a bite. That's for sure. You're not getting an invite. That's for sure. Yeah. So now let's look at the schedule, right? What do you think it's going to come down to when it comes to wins and losses, right? I know Gerard's probably going to say they're going to go undefeated and win the division again. But when I look at the Cardinals' schedule, I'm thinking I see a team, right, a franchise that's trending in the right direction. When GM Monty Austin Fort and head coach Jonathan Gannon got to the Valley, they had 4 wins their first year, 8 wins last year. So they're trending, like I said, in the right direction. I think they take that next step, get to double-digit wins this year. I say 9 or 10. It all depends on if they can get a couple upsets, right? Because you got some favorable matchups early. Even though you're on the road in New Orleans week 1, you're going to play a young quarterback, right? It could be Shuck, it could be Spencer Rattler. Either way, it's a quarterback you can get to, right? Then you've got, Cam Ward, the number 1 pick coming with Tennessee. Then you got a young quarterback in Carolina. So you got teams that you should be able to beat. And then, I never thought I'd say this, Aaron, but thank the Lord, thank you, baby Jesus, that we don't have to play your guy in Seattle anymore, right? Geno Smith is gone. I never thought I'd say that because for some reason he owned Arizona. He's not that guy until he plays the Cardinals. Yeah. Now I know Sam Darnold is not that guy. So we're at least going to get a split against you guys, right? So we can split the division. That's what gets you to 8 or 9 or 10 wins. So, Aaron, what do you think? Are you guys going to sweep the Cardinals again? What are your thoughts on the overall one-loss record for the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, the expectation would be to sweep the Cardinals, but I've said it before. I think that this is at least a 10-win team this season. So I'll give you a split. You split all of the divisional games. That's 3 wins right there. The Seahawks have 4 opponents this year who won 5 games or fewer last season. So that's 7 total wins. And then you got a Steelers team without a solid quarterback situation. You have the Colts and the Bucs at home. I think there's your 10 wins. And they also have home opportunities against Houston and then the Vikings with a rookie quarterback. Who knows how good the Falcons are going to be this season also. So even if you drop a game you're not supposed to drop, I still see 10 or 11 wins in that schedule for Seattle this year.
All right, so I'm putting it in my diary, right? I'm putting it in 10 wins. I keep the receipts, Aaron. Yeah. You got to remember, I keep all this stuff. All right, Gerard, undefeated? What are you guys going to do? I'm sure you guys are going to kill it this year, right? Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Now, of course, my predictions are just like your guys' predictions in terms of health is everything.
Right.
Dave, that's the determining factor when we, make these predictions on how the teams that we cover are going to do. Health is everything. This Rams offensive line should be the best offensive line they've had since they won the Super Bowl. So you would assume You're going to get a healthy Matthew Stafford this year, and a healthy Matthew Stafford behind a good offensive line with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams is trouble for the rest of the league all the way around. All right. To my account, 13-5 is what I'm looking at right now. The difficult roadies, Philly, Baltimore, at San Francisco, and Atlanta. Atlanta's tough at home. They score a lot of points. The home games that are challenging, Detroit, the Jaguars, because that game's a London game, and the Texans to start the season. So in my opinion, if the Rams stay healthy, Sean McVay's a great coach. They have the quarterback. They have the offensive line. They've got the weapons. The defense should be much improved. That defensive line came on as one of the best in the league towards the end of the year. I'm looking at 13-5 right now, guys, and we'll see how it turns out. But that's my count when I looked at the schedule today.
The coolest part about that is that the Rams get to play an extra game in the regular season. How cool is that, guys? When's that going to be? They're not going to have a bye week?
18 games.
18 game season for them.
Okay.
You know what? My mistake.
That's how good the Rams are. They're going to win
13-4.
Yeah. So notice he didn't take the loss away, right? I'm putting it in my diary. Rams play 18 games. We just need to, Gerard's a great guy. We just need to work on his confidence, right? Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's LA for you, that's for sure. All right, Keyshawn, we know you guys have a cupcake schedule. Send me the extra cupcakes because I love sweets. That's why I'm such a sweet guy. But what do you think? How many games are you guys going to play? Is it going to be 19 games? And how many wins are you guys going to have?
All right, y'all. So, based on the metrics, this is probably the easiest schedule for the Niners. I think the Atlanta Falcons had a harder schedule in 2015, but the Niners should at least have 13 or 12 wins this year. Out the gate, we should go 4-0. I mean, we got the Seahawks. No disrespect, Aaron, but y'all not on the Niners level. We got the Seahawks, then we got the Cardinals, then we got the Saints, and then we got the Jags. Love Travis Hunter, but that's not enough. The part where it gets tough for the Niners is from week 5 to week 8. They got the Falcons, the Buccaneers, always blanking out what's the next opponent, the Texans. And I think that's when they could probably have a loss or two, and then the Rams. They have a loss or two in those 4 games. But after that, Aaron mentioned it earlier, that 7-game stretch, there's no playoff quarterbacks, and everybody's played less than 20 games at the quarterback position in the last part of the season for those teams that Niners will be going against. So if we don't get at least 12 wins, I'm going to go as far as 13. It's a disappointment. I mean, how easier does it not get for the Niners to not make this happen? Now, Gerard brought a great point. We saw what happened with the Niners last year. Injuries can really derail a whole season. So if the Niners deal with that, then, of course, they're probably going to have 7 or 8 wins. But if they stay fully healthy, having that great roster they've always had since 2019, the Niners should have at least 12 wins. So I'm going to go out on the limb. They're going to have at least 12 or 13 wins this upcoming year.
Man, Aaron, it's not even training camp, and Keyshawn's already talking smack and taking shots.
I was going to ask for an emergency huddle on September 8th after that game because I know what's happening also. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, I'm going to put that in my diary. Emergency huddle on September 8th. We got that, right? Well, hey, it was a great huddle today, right? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're running out of time. So, guys, thanks for joining us. It was a great huddle. We'll do it again next week. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a great night.